The massive object appeared on Earth's deep space radar stations on a quiet Tuesday morning. At first, the scientists at NASA thought it was a mistake in their readings. But within hours, every major space agency in the world was tracking the same thing: an enormous fleet of ships moving toward Earth at incredible speed. Admiral James Miller stood in front of the main screen at the Global Defense Force headquarters, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was dead silent as they watched more and more dots appear on the radar. His gray eyes narrowed as he studied the formation of the approaching fleet. "How many?" he asked, his voice cutting through the silence. "Over 300 ships, sir. The smallest one is bigger than anything we've ever built," replied Officer Robert Davis, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to get better readings. Before anyone could say more, every screen in the room flickered. A face appeared, almost human, but not quite. The being had metallic-looking skin and completely black eyes. It spoke in perfect English. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Vale of the Galactic Empire. Your primitive world has been chosen for integration into our glorious empire. Surrender now, and we will make your transition peaceful. Resist, and we will be forced to take more direct action." The message repeated in every major language on Earth. Within minutes, phones were ringing across the room as reports came in from every nation. The aliens had hijacked every broadcast system on the planet. While panic spread in cities worldwide, something interesting was happening in the scientific community. Dr. Emma West at the London Institute of Physics made the first discovery. She noticed that the Empire's scan beams were behaving strangely when they hit Earth's atmosphere. "Look at these readings," she told her team, pointing at her computer screen. "Earth's magnetic field is naturally disrupting their scans, and our atmosphere. It's actually blocking most of their attempts to map our defenses." Similar discoveries were being made around the world. Earth's natural properties were proving to be unexpectedly defensive against alien technology. It was as if the planet itself was ready for this moment. At the emergency UN session, world leaders gathered to face humanity's greatest crisis. The main chamber was packed as Admiral Miller presented their options. "We have 20 ships in our space fleet," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "They're small and they're new, but they're all we've got in orbit. But there's something else." He paused, looking at the assembled leaders. "Our planet is helping us. The Empire's weapons rely on technology that our magnetic field naturally interferes with. They don't know it yet, but they've picked a fight with the wrong planet." In orbit, the crew of Earth's small fleet watched as the first Imperial ships entered the solar system. Captain Mark Turner of the EDS Defender saw them first. Massive ships that looked like they were made of liquid metal, stretching for kilometers. "All ships, maintain position," he ordered over the secure channel. "Let them come to us. Remember your training." The Empire's fleet moved past Mars, their ships casting shadows on the red planet. They were clearly confident, not even trying to hide their approach. Why would they? To them, Earth was just another primitive world to add to their collection. But they had made a serious mistake. As their ships got closer, their sensors started failing. Their scan beams bounced off Earth's atmosphere in strange ways. Their targeting systems showed conflicting readings. In his office at the Global Defense Force HQ, Admiral Miller received the first good news of the day. The Empire's ships were having trouble getting clear readings of Earth's defenses. Their mighty technology was being confused by simple nature. He allowed himself a small smile as he looked out his window at the setting sun. Tomorrow, humanity would face its greatest test, but they weren't going into it defenseless. Earth itself was on their side, and humanity had a few surprises of its own ready. The first day of the invasion was ending, but Earth's resistance was just beginning. As night fell across the planet, millions looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, humanity's future was hanging in the balance. But for the first time since the ships appeared, there was also hope. Because sometimes the simplest defenses are the best ones. and Earth had been developing those defenses for 4 billion years. The Imperial ship that entered Earth's atmosphere was smaller than the others, but still impressive. It glided down through the clouds like a silver arrow, landing smoothly in the middle of the United Nations Plaza in New York. The world watched through countless cameras as its doors opened with a hiss of steam. Lord Thax stepped out, his metallic skin gleaming in the sunlight. He stood 7 feet tall, wearing armor that looked like flowing water. 4 guards followed him, each carrying weapons that hummed with strange energy. Inside the UN building, Admiral Miller watched the alien delegation approach on the security feeds. "Remember," he said to the assembled world leaders, "show no fear. That's what they want to see." The Imperial ambassador entered the chamber like he owned it. His black eyes scanned the room, probably recording everything with hidden technology. When he spoke, his voice was smooth but cold. "Your world has been chosen for a great honor," Lord Thax announced. "The Empire brings order to chaos, civilization to the primitive. You have 72 hours to submit to Imperial rule. After that, we will begin cleansing protocols." The chamber erupted in angry shouts, but Lord Thax simply smiled. He activated a small device, and a hologram filled the room. It showed Imperial ships destroying a planet's surface. "This was the last world that refused us," he said. "Don't make their mistake." But while Lord Thax was delivering his threat, something incredible was happening in an underground lab in Denver. Dr. Anna Roberts stared at her test results in amazement. "Run it again," she told her team. This can't be right. But it was right. They had tested the Empire's biological weapons, samples secretly collected from their ship's engine exhaust, against human DNA. The results were clear. Humans were naturally resistant. "It's like our DNA has built-in protection," she explained later to Admiral Miller over a secure video call. "Whatever they try to use against us, we can fight it." The Admiral nodded. "Good, because we're going to need every advantage we can get." Across the globe, military forces were quietly gathering. For the first time in human history, old enemies worked together against a common threat. Chinese submarines patrolled alongside American ones. Russian aircraft flew joint missions with European fighters. Deep underground, in bunkers that most people didn't know existed, humanity's real preparations were underway. Blast doors that hadn't moved in decades opened silently. Weapons that had been kept hidden for generations were brought out into the light. In his private office, Admiral Miller received reports from around the world. Everything was ready. Humanity had planned for this day for longer than anyone knew. He picked up a secure phone and dialed a number only 5 people in the world knew. "Begin Operation Watchman," he ordered. Across the planet, hidden installations hummed to life. Satellite dishes that everyone thought were for TV or phone service turned to face the Empire's fleet. Deep in the ocean, secret bases activated systems that had been waiting for decades. Lord Thax was still in New York when his ship's sensors detected the first sign that something was wrong. Energy readings from Earth were changing. The primitive power systems they detected were being replaced by something else. "Impossible," he muttered, looking at the readings. "They're not supposed to have this technology." He sent an urgent message to the fleet. The response came back quickly. Similar changes were being detected worldwide. Earth wasn't as helpless as they had thought. In the UN chamber, Admiral Miller watched Lord Thax's face change as more reports came in. The Admiral allowed himself a small smile. "Something wrong, Ambassador?" he asked. Lord Thax turned to him, his black eyes narrowing. "You've been hiding things from us." "We've been preparing," Miller corrected him, "for a very long time." The Imperial ambassador's confident smile was gone now. He looked out the window at the New York skyline, seeing it with new eyes. Those buildings weren't just primitive structures anymore. They were cover for something else. Something waiting. The 72-hour countdown was ticking, but Earth wasn't scrambling to submit. Instead, it was getting ready for a fight that had been planned for generations. The Empire had made a serious mistake. They had judged Earth by what they could see on the surface. They were about to learn what was hidden underneath. Professor Tom Wilson walked into the emergency meeting at the Pentagon carrying an old briefcase. He looked ordinary, just a tall man with gray hair and glasses, but what he carried would change everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, opening the briefcase and taking out a small black device, "this is why we're going to win this war." The room was filled with military leaders from around the world. Admiral Miller sat at the front, watching closely as Professor Wilson placed the device on the table. "For 50 years, we've been building Project Guardian," Wilson explained. "Every satellite we've launched, every space mission we've done, they all carried pieces of it. Today, we turn it on." He pressed a button on the device. Screens around the room lit up, showing a map of Earth surrounded by thousands of tiny dots. "Each dot is a piece of our planetary shield," Wilson said. "The Empire thinks our satellites are primitive communication tools. They're wrong." In space, the Empire's fleet was getting ready for their first attack. They had chosen a small target, a military base in the desert. To show Earth their power, their biggest ship moved into position, its weapons charging. The ship fired. The beam of energy shot toward Earth like a spear of light, but halfway through the atmosphere, it hit something invisible. The sky lit up with a blue glow that spread across the horizon. In the Pentagon, everyone watched as the shield worked perfectly. The Empire's weapon, powerful enough to destroy a city, had been stopped cold. "How?" asked a general, staring at the screens in amazement. "The truth is," Professor Wilson said, "we've known about aliens since 1947. Not because of crashes or visits, but because we found something in ancient ruins, a warning left by those who came before. It told us they would come, and it told us how to prepare." Across the world, more secrets were being revealed. Regular weather satellites transformed, unfolding hidden panels and activating shielding systems. Old radio telescopes turned out to be powerful defense platforms. In orbit, Captain Lisa Brown commanded one of Earth's primitive space stations, but with a simple code, the station's outer shell fell away, revealing advanced weapons and shields underneath. "All stations, combat mode," she ordered. The other stations followed suit, showing their true nature for the first time. The Empire's sensors went crazy. Where they had seen primitive technology, now they detected power readings that matched their own best weapons. Earth's carefully maintained disguise was falling away. Lord Thax watched from his ship, his black eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "The reports said they were primitive. We watched them for decades." "That's because we wanted you to watch." Admiral Miller's voice came over all Imperial channels. "Everything you saw was what we wanted you to see." The truth was bigger than even most humans knew. The space race hadn't just been about beating each other to the moon. It had been about getting pieces of the shield into place. The Cold War wasn't just about nuclear weapons. It was about hiding the real weapons being built underground. Every major nation had played its part. Russian submarines carried shield generators disguised as missile tubes. Chinese satellites held powerful energy weapons behind simple communication arrays. American space shuttles had secretly lifted pieces of the planetary defense system into orbit with each mission. In his office, Professor Wilson looked at a photo on his desk. It showed 3 generations of scientists, his grandfather, his father, and himself, all working on Project Guardian. 75 years of preparation, hidden in plain sight. "Send the message," Admiral Miller ordered. Screens across Earth, and in every Imperial ship, showed the same thing. Earth's full defense grid activating. The shield wasn't just a shield. It was a weapon too. And it was ready. The Empire had given Earth 72 hours to surrender. Instead, Earth had used that time to reveal its true strength. The carefully maintained mask of a primitive planet had served its purpose. Now it was time to show the Empire why Earth had been preparing for so long. The real fight was about to begin, and humanity was ready. As Professor Wilson looked out his window at the night sky, he smiled. Somewhere up there, the Empire was learning a hard lesson. Never judge a planet by its cover. The first nuclear missile launched from a hidden silo in the Pacific Ocean. But this wasn't an ordinary nuclear weapon. As it rose through the atmosphere, panels fell away revealing technology that shouldn't exist on Earth. Captain Lisa Brown watched from her space station as the missile climbed higher. "All stations lock on target," she ordered. "Let's show them what primitive weapons can do." The Empire's largest battleship, the one they called Planet Killer, saw the missile coming. They didn't worry. Their shields could easily stop any nuclear weapon this primitive planet could make. They were wrong. Just before impact, the missile split into 12 smaller pieces. Each piece glowed with strange energy that the Empire had never seen before. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, didn't know what to do with these enhanced nuclear warheads. The explosions ripped through the Planet Killer's shields like they weren't even there. "Direct hit," someone shouted in Earth's command center. Admiral Miller nodded, watching as the massive Imperial ship's lights flickered and died. "Launch the next wave," he ordered. "All ships, begin attack pattern Delta." Earth's obsolete space fleet moved into action. The ships that the Empire had laughed at transformed in front of their eyes. Hidden weapons emerged from what looked like cargo bays. Simple communication arrays turned into powerful energy cannons. Captain Brown led the attack, her ship moving with impossible speed. "Remember your training," she told her crew. "Everything we've practiced for years. This is why." The Empire's fleet commanders couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their advanced sensors showed impossible things. Earth's ships were using technology that mixed old and new in ways they'd never seen. Nuclear weapons enhanced with alien tech. Primitive rockets guided by advanced AI. Simple missiles carrying weapons that ignored their best shields. "How are they doing this?" Lord Thax demanded, watching another Imperial ship fall to Earth's attacks. "Their weapons are impossible." The truth was simple but brilliant. Earth had found a way to combine their primitive technology with advanced systems in ways the Empire had never thought of. Nuclear weapons were old technology, but combined with alien tech, they became something new. Something the Empire's defenses weren't designed to stop. In her ship, Captain Brown lined up another shot. "Fire everything," she ordered. Her crew launched a mix of weapons, missiles, energy beams, and things that had no name in human languages. The Imperial ships tried to fight back, but Earth had another surprise ready. Professor Wilson's team had created a quantum communication network that the Empire couldn't hack or jam. Earth's forces could coordinate perfectly while Imperial ships struggled to talk to each other. "Their targeting systems are confused," Brown reported to Admiral Miller. "The magnetic field trick is working." Earth's magnetic field, already naturally disruptive to Imperial technology, had been enhanced by hidden devices planted around the planet. The Empire's advanced targeting computers couldn't make sense of the readings they were getting. In orbit, a massive Imperial dreadnought aimed its main gun at North America. But before it could fire, Captain Brown's ship appeared from behind Earth's moon. "Not today," she said quietly, pressing the firing button. The dreadnought's shields, designed to stop the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy, did nothing against the mix of nuclear power and alien tech that Earth had created. The massive ship split in half, its crew escaping in small pods. Admiral Miller watched the battle from his command center. Screens showed Imperial ships retreating, pulling back beyond Mars. Earth's defenders followed, pushing them further away from the planet. "Send the message," Miller ordered. All across the Empire's fleet, screens lit up with words in their own language. "This is your only warning. Earth is not what you thought. Retreat now." For the first time in its history, the Empire faced an enemy that could not only fight back but win. Their perfect shields were useless. Their advanced weapons couldn't lock on targets. Their mighty ships were falling to weapons they didn't understand. They had expected an easy victory over a primitive world. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had spent decades preparing specifically to defeat them. and Earth was just getting started. The Empire's entire fleet appeared from hyperspace at once. 10,000 ships filled the space between Mars and Earth, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. This was no longer about conquering Earth. Now they wanted to destroy it. Admiral Miller stood in the command center, looking at the massive fleet on his screens. "Activate the ionosphere defense grid," he ordered. "Get everyone underground." Across Earth, sirens wailed. But there was no panic. Everyone knew where to go. The underground cities, built in secret over decades, opened their massive doors. Millions of people moved calmly into these massive shelters, built deep beneath mountains and oceans. "They're charging weapons," Captain Brown reported from her station. "All ships, full power to shields." The Empire's attack began with a flash brighter than the sun. Thousands of energy beams shot toward Earth at once. They expected to burn through the atmosphere and turn the surface to glass. Instead, something amazing happened. Earth's ionosphere, already naturally electrically charged, had been modified by hidden machines over the years. When the Empire's weapons hit it, the entire layer lit up like a giant shield. Most of their attacks scattered harmlessly into space. Lord Thax watched in fury from his command ship. "Impossible. Launch the ground forces. We'll take this planet the old way." Imperial dropships pushed through the weakened spots in Earth's defenses. They carried the Empire's best warriors, wearing powered armor that could crush tanks. But as they entered the atmosphere, they faced their first surprise. Earth's gravity was stronger than they expected. Their carefully calibrated jump jets struggled. Their armor, designed for lighter worlds, felt heavy and slow. "The gravity is crushing their attack forces," Professor Wilson reported, watching the data. "And our atmosphere is corroding their armor." They never bothered to test either. The Imperial troops that made it to the ground found themselves fighting in conditions they weren't prepared for. Earth's thicker atmosphere made their energy weapons less effective. Their targeting systems, confused by the magnetic field, kept missing. And Earth's defenders were ready. From hidden bunkers and mountain bases, Earth's armies emerged. They fought with weapons that mixed old and new technology. Rifles that fired normal bullets wrapped in energy fields, tanks that could turn invisible, planes that could ignore gravity. In orbit, Captain Brown led her fleet in a desperate battle. "They still can't target us properly," she reported. "The magnetic field is driving their computers crazy." The Empire's mighty ships, each one capable of destroying a planet, found themselves being picked apart by Earth's smaller but more maneuverable vessels. Earth's natural magnetic field had been weaponized, turning the planet's own properties into a defense system. Lord Thax watched in growing horror as his ground forces reported failure after failure. "The air is too thick. Our weapons don't work right. The gravity is crushing our heavy units." In the command center, Admiral Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Earth itself is fighting back," he said quietly. The battle raged for hours. The Empire had numbers and raw power. But Earth had preparation, knowledge, and home field advantage. Every Imperial soldier who landed found themselves fighting not just Earth's armies, but Earth itself. Professor Wilson's team monitored the battle from their underground lab. "The Empire made a basic mistake," he explained to his staff. "They never considered that our primitive planet's natural properties could be turned into weapons." By the end of the day, the Empire's ground forces were in retreat. Their dropships, those that could still fly in Earth's heavy gravity, rushed back to their fleet. The mighty Imperial army had been defeated not just by Earth's defenders, but by the simple physics of the planet they tried to invade. In orbit, Captain Brown watched the enemy fleet pulling back. "They're retreating past the moon," she reported. "First wave of their ships jumping to hyperspace." Admiral Miller nodded. "Send the message to all commands. Earth stands." The Empire had launched its full invasion force against Earth, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found that this primitive planet had turned its very nature into a weapon. Earth's gravity, atmosphere, and magnetic field, things the Empire saw as obstacles to overcome, had become the planet's best defenses. The Empire had brought its mightiest weapons to the battle. Earth had simply used what it already had, and Earth had won. Lord Thax stood in his command room, staring at an ancient text glowing on his screen. His hand shook as he read it again. The symbols were clear now, a warning written in the oldest language known to the Empire. "Stop the attack," he whispered, then shouted, "Stop all attacks now." But the reason for his panic came too late. Deep inside Earth's moon base, Professor Wilson had made an even more incredible discovery. "Admiral Miller," he said over the secure channel, "you need to see this immediately." In the lunar research base, Wilson showed the Admiral what his team had found. Hidden in an ancient chamber deep within the moon was a message, written in a language that seemed to glow with its own light. "We found this chamber 20 years ago," Wilson explained, "but we only just finished translating it. Earth wasn't marked as forbidden in ancient records by accident. It was marked as forbidden because it's the birthplace of everything." The message was clear. Earth was the origin point, the place where the ancient civilization that had seeded the galaxy first evolved. The Empire wasn't attacking a primitive world. They were attacking their own ancestral home. "That's not all," Wilson continued, leading Miller to a lab where Dr. Roberts was waiting. She had been studying human DNA with new equipment found in the lunar base. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a complex display. "Human DNA isn't just naturally resistant to their weapons. It contains encrypted information. We're not just living on the birthplace of galactic civilization. We're their descendants." In orbit, Captain Brown received urgent messages from the Imperial fleet. Their ships were standing down. The massive fleet that had threatened Earth was pulling back, their weapons powered down. On his ship, Lord Thax was facing a crisis. The Empire's leadership was in chaos as the truth spread through their fleet. They hadn't found a primitive world to conquer. They had found the legendary homeworld, the planet their oldest stories spoke about with reverence. The magnetic field, the atmosphere, the gravity, Professor Wilson explained to Earth's leaders. They're not natural defenses. They're a security system, built billions of years ago. Earth isn't just a planet. It's a fortress designed to protect itself until humanity was ready. In the Empire's fleet, ships began arguing among themselves. Some wanted to continue the attack. Others wanted to kneel before Earth. The Empire's perfect unity was breaking apart as the truth spread. Their own records warned them, Admiral Miller said, reading the translations. That's why Earth was marked as forbidden. Their ancestors left warnings saying this world was not to be touched. They didn't listen. Dr. Roberts made another discovery in her lab. The junk DNA we could never understand. It's not junk at all. It's a library. Information about technology far beyond anything the Empire has. Our ancestors hid their knowledge inside us, waiting for us to be ready to understand it. The Empire's ships were retreating now, moving back beyond Mars. But they didn't leave entirely. They waited, their crews trying to understand what they had done. They had tried to conquer the very world their civilization had come from. In the lunar base, Professor Wilson showed Admiral Miller one last thing. A chamber that seemed to pulse with energy, filled with technology that made the Empire's best ships look primitive. "This is just the beginning," Wilson said. "Earth isn't primitive at all. We're not less advanced than the Empire. We're what comes after them. They've been using copies of ancient technology. We have the original source." On Earth, people emerged from the underground cities to see Imperial ships retreating from their world. They didn't know yet that they had not just defended their planet. They had reclaimed humanity's place in the galaxy. Lord Thax sent one final message to Earth before his ship retreated. "We did not know," he said simply. "We did not understand what Earth truly was." Admiral Miller's reply was equally simple. "Now you do." The Empire had come to conquer what they thought was a primitive world. Instead, they found the source of their own civilization, protected by defenses built into the planet itself, waiting for humanity to reclaim its heritage. Earth wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. It was taking its first steps toward an even greater destiny. 1 month after the Empire's failed invasion, Earth's message reached every corner of the galaxy. It wasn't sent through normal communication channels. Instead, it traveled through an ancient network that had laid dormant for millions of years. Admiral Miller stood before the United Nations, no longer just representing Earth's defense forces. Now he spoke for humanity's future among the stars. "Today, we send our terms to the Empire," he announced. "Earth will be recognized as a sovereign system. No Imperial ships may enter our space without permission, and we offer the same protection to any world that wants to be free." In orbit, Captain Brown's fleet had grown. Earth's ships now carried weapons and shields based on the original designs found in the lunar base. Not the copies the Empire used, but the real technology their ancestors had created. "Another group of Imperial citizens requesting sanctuary," she reported. Ships from all over the Empire were coming to Earth, scientists, scholars, and ordinary people, drawn to humanity's homeworld. Professor Wilson and Dr. Roberts had made even more discoveries. The hidden knowledge in human DNA wasn't just about technology. It contained star maps, histories, and secrets that the Empire had forgotten ages ago. "They've been using the same technology for thousands of years," Wilson explained to world leaders. "Never improving, never understanding how it really works. We're finding new uses for it every day." Lord Thax, once the proud Imperial ambassador, now stood before the Empire's High Council with a different message. "Earth must be respected," he said. "They are not just another world. They are the source, the beginning." The Empire was changing. Worlds that had been conquered centuries ago were demanding freedom. Earth's victory had shown them it was possible to stand against Imperial power. In her lab, Dr. Roberts worked with scientists from across the galaxy. "Human DNA doesn't just resist their weapons," she explained. "It contains the keys to making them better. Everything the Empire has was based on incomplete copies of Earth's original technology." Admiral Miller received reports from distant stars. Imperial governors were surrendering without a fight. The myth of the Empire's invincibility had been broken. Earth's broadcast had changed everything. "The Sol System's sovereignty treaty is ready," his aide reported. The document was simple but powerful. Earth and its solar system were off-limits to the Empire. Any aggression would be met with force. The Empire's leadership had no choice but to sign. Their own people were demanding it. The revelation about Earth's true nature had sparked a revolution in Imperial society. Everyone wanted to learn about their true origins. Professor Wilson made another discovery in the lunar base. "It's a message," he said, showing Admiral Miller the glowing text. "From our ancestors. They say they hid Earth away and disguised our technology because they saw the Empire becoming corrupt. They wanted humanity to develop on its own, without Imperial influence." The plan had worked perfectly. Earth had developed its own unique way of thinking. While the Empire stagnated, using the same old technology, humanity had learned to innovate, to combine old and new in ways the Empire never imagined. Captain Brown's fleet now patrolled the edges of the solar system. But they weren't alone. Ships from other worlds came to learn from Earth. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was weakening as more planets chose independence. "We're not just defending Earth anymore," she told her crew. "We're helping rebuild the galaxy." In the UN chamber, Admiral Miller signed the final treaty. Earth was now officially recognized as an independent power. But it was more than that. Earth was becoming a symbol of freedom across the galaxy. Lord Thax watched the ceremony from his ship. "We came to conquer them," he said quietly. "Instead, they showed us who we really are." The empire that had tried to conquer Earth was changing. Some called it the Great Awakening. Worlds that had been under imperial control for generations were remembering their own histories, rediscovering their own strength. And at the center of it all was Earth, not just a planet that had survived an imperial invasion, but the birthplace of a civilization that was finally coming back to life. Earth had declared no entry to the empire. In doing so, It had opened the door to something much greater, a new age of freedom in the galaxy. The story that began with an invasion was ending with a revolution, and humanity was leading the way.